Have you ever had one of those periods where everything seems to pile on at once? You convince yourself you're coping, you tell everyone you're fine, but then someone asks if you're all right and you realize you've become someone you don't even recognize. That's exactly where I found myself this year. Moving house, getting rejected for jobs, feeling completely undervalued, losing trust in people I worked with, becoming short tempered, snapping at the people I cared about, and eventually sitting in front of a counsellor wondering how I'd got there. This isn't an episode about feeling sorry for yourself, it's about what happens when you ignore stress for too long. We just moved house. Now, anyone who's moved house before knows exactly what that's like. Boxes everywhere, nothing's where it's supposed to be. You're spending money every 5 minutes. Every evening there's another job to do. It's exciting, but it's also mentally exhausting. I didn't really acknowledge that at the time. I just cracked on like most blokes do. Then work started throwing punches. I applied for several jobs that genuinely sat within my experience. These weren't dream jobs where I thought I'd have a lucky chance. There were roles where the essential criteria matched things I'd been doing for nearly 10 years. Then the rejection emails arrived. You don't meet the minimum requirements. That was it. No explanation, no feedback, no, you've got this, but we'd like to see more of that. No development, no direction, nothing. That annoyed me more than the rejection itself because I love improvement. Tell me where I'm weak, tell me what skill I need, give me something to work towards. Instead, it just felt like, no. That's hard to accept when you're someone who genuinely enjoys learning. Then came a team leader role. I actually got through to the second stage and spent hours on this presentation. Built what I genuinely thought was one of the best presentations I ever delivered. I walked out thinking, I've got a real shot here. Then came the feedback. I was told, you're very people focused, you clearly care about your team, but you didn't demonstrate how you'd influence or collaborate with other teams. I remember reading that and just staring at the screen because I'd literally dedicated a slide to exactly that. How I'd work with other departments, how I'd build relationships, how I'd influence change. It wasn't just mentioned, it was one of the biggest talking points. So again, I wasn't even angry I'd missed out, I was frustrated because the feedback didn't line up with what I'd actually presented. It felt like I'd prepared for one exam and been marked against another. Around the same time, I completely lost trust in my manager. I'd had ideas before, shared them, and then somehow those ideas would suddenly become someone else's. I'd disappear from the conversation only to see them rolled out later. Eventually I thought, right, let's test this. So I came up with something I knew didn't work. There was a system issue with how inspections were being booked. I casually suggested that adding extra information into one of the boxes would magically fix the routing issue. It was complete nonsense. I sat back and waited, and sure enough, he grabbed it, posted it around group chats, shared it as though he'd cracked the case, problem solved. Except it didn't work. Because it never had. The responses started flooding in. We've already tried this. Doesn't fix it. Still broken. Meanwhile, I was sat there feeling like Mr. Burns from The Simpsons. Excellent. Now, was it childish? Probably. Did it prove exactly what I suspected? Absolutely. Because sometimes people show you exactly who they are. Sometimes all you have to do is give them that opportunity. Then came the performance pressure. Emails, team messages, daily reminders that performance wasn't where it needed to be. The frustrating part, I'd already raised these concerns several times, that the person I was working alongside simply wasn't pulling their weight. Eventually, it came out that over 8 working days, he'd done virtually nothing. Nothing. Yet somehow that pressure landed on both of us. Eventually, I'd had enough. I rang him, and probably for the first time, I said exactly what it needed saying. No shouting, no insults, just honesty. I explained exactly where things were going wrong, because carrying someone else's workload while being told you aren't performing eventually wears you down. When I look back, none of these things individually would have broken me. Moving house, job rejections, poor feedback, a manager I didn't trust, a lazy colleague. None of those would have done it, but together it became death by 1,000 cuts. I became irritable, snappy, short-tempered, not particularly pleasant to be around. People closest to me noticed before I did. And that's usually how stress works. Everyone else sees it before you do. Eventually, I decided to speak to a counsellor. And looking back, I wish I'd done it sooner. One thing that counselling gave me almost immediately was perspective. Not solutions, perspective. Research consistently shows that talking therapies and cognitive behavioral therapy can significantly reduce symptoms of stress, anxiety, and depression for many people. They also improve emotional regulation, helping people recognize thought patterns and respond more constructively instead of simply reacting. Studies have also found that having a strong therapeutic relationship, feeling listened to and understood, is one of the biggest predicators of positive outcomes, regardless of the specific counseling approach. That really resonated with me because I wasn't looking for someone to fix my problems. I just needed somewhere to unpack them. Somewhere that wasn't my wife, somewhere that wasn't work, somewhere that wasn't me lying awake at 2 in the morning replaying conversations. The biggest thing counseling helped me understand was that none of this was really about the jobs or my manager or my colleague. It was about my values. I value growth, I value ownership, responsibility, progress, learning. When those things disappeared from work, I felt stuck. And when you feel stuck, frustration builds. Once I understood that, everything changed. Instead of trying to force growth from somewhere that wasn't giving it to me, I started looking elsewhere. This podcast, learning, reading, counseling, new projects, places where I actually could grow. I'm only 3 or 4 sessions into counseling. I've got plenty left to learn, but already I understand myself far better than I did a month ago. And that's exciting because growth has always been that thing that drives me. Sometimes growth comes from promotions, sometimes it comes from success, sometimes it comes from sitting in a room with someone you've never met, talking honestly about everything you've been trying to carry on your own. If you're listening to this and you've noticed you're becoming more irritable, short-tempered, or you're carrying work home every single day, don't wait until you're completely burnt out. Talking to someone doesn't make you weak. Sometimes it's the quickest route back to becoming the person you actually want to be. Thanks for listening to What a Time to Be Alive. If this episode resonated with you, share it with someone who you think might need to hear it. Sometimes the conversation you're avoiding is the one that changes everything.